right? Now that goes against everything that you've been taught your whole life. Everything you've been taught your whole life. You've been taught that you think with your mind. But in the Quran, it talks about what the mind does. Think about some of the things the Quran says about the mind. Jesus said, let us forget the body. He said, let us forget the flesh and go with mind. And go with mind. So therefore, he is identifying that the mind is a vehicle that we could use to transcend boundaries, that we could use to transcend time and space. So when the Prophet Muhammad, he talked about going from Mecca to Jerusalem and back to Mecca in one night, the night's journey. How did he travel? He said he traveled on an animal called Barak, and this animal in one stride, he moves as far as his eyes could see at the speed of thought. At the speed of thought, he was traveling with the mind. You understand what I'm saying? What else did he say about the mind? He said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind. So he's telling us that there is a workshop in the mind. And he's saying where we build up thought. He said where things are made of thought and where we build up character. Now he's telling us what we're supposed to be doing in the workshop, but that's not what you have to do because your mind is yours. You can change it when you want to. Islam. Paradigm Shifting the podcast. It's the Sheik Maurice Pennington Bey, the Moorish master student. And I got my little cousin here with me, Islam Moab. I got Mo, Sankey Bey, Islam. How you doing, Moab?
I'm feeling good. How about you?
Oh, I'm well, Mo. I'm well. You know, we blessed. You know what I'm saying? We can't complain because we blessed. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what they got going on over here in Texas. So the Governor Abbott is up to it again. He up to his old conniving ways. And yes, I did say conniving ways. You understand me? And these demonstrations are conniving for the simple fact that hold on real quick. I'm trying to get before we do anything, y'all know I like to make sure and for certain that the StreamYard link is in the chat. I kicked myself out. I want to make sure that the link is in the chat because anybody who wants to join the podcast, wants to come up and build with us, you're welcome. You know, I don't prescribe to the idea, but you know what we got to say about the matter is all that is to be said. Okay, so the Governor Abbott in Texas, they want to pass this law where they say that the 10 Commandments will be displayed in every single solitary classroom of every public school in Texas. But there's issues with that. You know, some of the issues with that is the simple fact that the Constitution of the United States of America says that the United States of America can't create no laws respecting or putting out front any particular religious group or religious body. And they cannot create no laws that impede or infringe upon the religious practice of any practitioner of any religion, no matter what it is, in the jurisdiction of the United States of America. So my whole argument today is, and yes, it is an argument. My argument is, if they would do this today, what then would prevent them from later on infringing upon all the elements of the Constitution of the United States of America? If you start with the first Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, then what then would later on say, well, forget about the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, the 15th Amendment, forget about all that. We could just violate the constitutional rights of American citizens whenever we feel like it. I mean, does that make sense?
It does.
It does. Okay. I mean, you a young Mo, you know, you a young Mo, you active, you very, very active in what goes on, you know, politically, socially, and economically, and within the United States government. I give honors to you for that. So I want you to kind of speak to, you know, for those who might not, you know, understand or have a relate to my personal voice. I want you to speak to this matter. Speak to the people. Tell them, you know, what's actually going on according to your understanding.
Islam. So what's actually going on is basically Texas, they basically getting away with violating the Constitution, like their Republican counterparts have been doing. And their excuse that they're trying to use is they want to give students the experience that the forefathers and stuff built the country off of. But you can't say that because the forefathers wrote the Bill of Rights and it specifically wanted a separation of church and state. That's
That's
why
right.
Madison wrote the establishment. Thomas Jefferson later wrote the Wall of Separation letter explaining how the Constitution separates church and state. It has been many cases where the Supreme Court even said like church and state should be separated. You can't infringe upon anyone. And basically, what Texas is trying to do is push this religion onto students, basically. And
Islam.
some students might not simply relate to their religion. It's not Christianity is not the only religion out there in Texas. There's more religions. You got the Hindus, Muslims. How would that make them feel every time they walk in class and they just see the Ten Commandments posted on the wall? And then it's not even like they specifically, it got to be a 16 by 20 poster visible in the class. And then they're not paying for it. The school either somebody has to donate it or they have to take funding away from these kids and use it themselves to buy this Ten Commandment poster.
Mm. So hold up. See what you just said really outlines a real issue with this particular endeavor. So they're not paying for it, like you said. They already established that it has to be this big. They want to make sure that everyone here sees this. All right. So they're saying that this is so relevant, that this is so important that anyone who comes into this classroom, they have to see this, the Ten Commandments displayed larger than anything that's in any textbook that they are reading in their classroom. Okay. Listen, Mom. I want to make this plain to everyone who listens. This is not an attack on the Christian belief system. This is not, okay, we are Moorish American Muslims and we want to, you know, jump on the fact that, you know, that the Texans want to say they want to display the Ten Commandments and it comes out the Bible. The great covenant of Allah is honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earth land which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. That is the fifth commandment for those who didn't know. Okay. The fifth commandment, according to the prophet Noble Drew Ali, is the great covenant of Allah. So we are absolutely in no way attacking anyone's religion. But what we are saying is that every single man, woman, and child has the right to worship under their own vine and fig tree. So no way should any Muslim, should any Buddhist, should any African Hebrew Israelite, or any Jew or any Christian, or any person who practices Wicca or Ifa Yoruba, or any religious system feel a way about sending their child to a classroom in any state of the United States and feel like their child is not being represented in the place where they spend most of their time. Because the reality is that our children spend most of their time in the classroom. So why should I not be represented in the classroom where I spend most of my time? And sadly, these religious institutions and the individuals who run them, they do not feel like, you know, every single solitary man, woman, and child is equal under Allah, under God, or whatever they call their God. They don't feel like we are all equal. They feel like only those who practice what they practice are equal, and therefore we should not allow that type of thing to come into public domain where we send our babies. And if you ask me, that's just the truth of the matter. And if you were asked the forefathers of this nation, they declared when they wrote the First Amendment that that was the truth of the matter. You understand me? Does that make sense?
It does.
I want to also point out that we live in a nation. Before I even say something, I want to ask. I'm gonna ask Chat GPT. I want to ask Chat GPT how many times has the Supreme Court ruled on this subject? I want to ask. So let me see this real quick. How many times has the Supreme Court ruled on this same matter? Let's see what happens. Okay, so it says that there were 5 major Supreme Court rulings. 3 that specifically targeted the 10 Commandments. All right. So what was the outcome of these cases? So out of the five cases, 4 cases ruled the Supreme that religious displays of practices were unconstitutional. In 1 case, Van Orden upheld the 10 Commandments in a limited historical context. Now I want to go back because I already had that particular case pulled up. Okay. So that was Van Orden versus Perry in 2005. The issue, a 10 Commandments monument on Texas State Capitol grounds, was challenged. All right. So the ruling, the court upheld the monument, noting its historical context and passive nature among other secular displays. The significance demonstrated that context matters. Religious displays with historical significance in a secular setting may be permissible. So the question now becomes if whether or not displaying the 10 Commandments or the Al-Fatiha from the Holy Quran or the Divine Constitution and Bylaws of the Moorish Science Temple of America or the Holy Covenant of the Moorish Science Temple of America or any religious text does it have any type of historical, if it has any type of historical value, whereas it can then, you know, have a historical value that outweighs the fact that it is preeminently religious. And in this case, I would challenge anybody. I would oppose any idea that the 10 Commandments being displayed in the classrooms of any public school in the United States of America has any historical value. I mean, am I tripping when I say that?
No.
No.
I'm not tripping.
And the fact is, I agree with all 10 commandments. I agree that they are all divine law. There's nothing within any of them that would have me to say that they were not inspired by Allah. While at the same time, understanding that this could set a precedent for what happens going forward. If you will violate the constitutional rights of the citizens of the United States of America by right now raising one religious doctrine above all other religious doctrines, then what will stop you from violating all the rest of the text of the Constitution? What will stop you from saying that, you know, a president, you know, must be elected, that a president must be of a certain age, that a president must be a citizen of the United States of America? What would stop you from saying that it is the duty of the Supreme Court to define the law? What would stop you from saying that whatever definition that any sitting president decided to apply to any law written in the past or the present or the future, whereas we have determined within the text of the Constitution that this particular duty is the duty of the Supreme Court. But now all of a sudden, the Congress says, well, we want to define the law. Or the president say that we want to define the law. What would stop you then from doing that? If we don't stop you now from saying that you're going to display the 10 Commandments in the classroom in public schools in any state of the United States of America.
And not only that, what will protect us?
Exactly. What would protect us? Because now we get deeper. Because if they say that the 13th Amendment and the Emancipation Proclamation is what allows for us as Asiatic people to be free in the United States of America, then what would protect us if any president of the United States of America or any group of Congress decides to say that they want to reinterpret the Emancipation Proclamation or the Constitution of the United States? We just seen, prime example, we just seen the president publicly defending his own executive ruling, where he say that he want to kick all the so-called immigrants. He called all the immigrants illegal unless he decides that they are not illegal. Okay, forget the process. If he decides that they are not illegal, he say, I want to kick them out. So they say, well, what about these babies who were born in the United States of America? And the 14th Amendment, which says that anyone who was born in the United States of America is a citizen of the United States of America. He said, well, this only was meant to apply to the children of slaves. Now, I don't see how anybody could think that they would want to let him get away with this, because only a small portion of the United States of America's citizens are related to slaves, and it don't matter if you're Asiatics or Europeans, because all of our ancestors were not slaves. This is a myth.
Exactly.
Okay, well, what about the Europeans? Because some of their ancestors were slaves, and we don't like to talk about that. But before Asiatics were enslaved in the United States of America, the Europeans were enslaved in the United States of America. And what about the Mexicans? What about the Mexicans? Which Mexico is America. California, Arizona, New Mexico belonged to them. You took it from them.
Texas, Florida.
Texas, Florida. It belonged to them. You took it from them. Well, what about their children? Okay. Well, what about any German, any Polish person? Because, see, we won't find modern day judges direct their misinterpretation of the law at these individuals. The ancestors of the Germans, the Polish people, the British people, who are immigrants who came to the United States of America and had children, who are without doubt or contradiction today considered as citizens of the United States of America. But you want to question if whether or not my children, your children, or any other Asiatic person's child is a citizen. They have been protected from these type of attacks prior to the election of this idiot Donald Trump. And yeah, I said it, he's an idiot. He's a racist bum. Say whatever you want to say. Maurice Pennington Bey said what he said. Take it how you want to. He's a racist bum and he's an idiot.
Like,
yeah, I ain't gonna get no argument from you, huh?
Nah, it's so crazy because it was 2017 when Trump first got elected. I was 11. I'm 18 now, and he president again. And I remember I was in 4th grade. I was at school. He just got elected. Everybody was devastated. My whole house went out and voted for Hillary. My grandma, my mama, my daddy, my auntie, everybody. And I was talking to my counselor, Dr. Gardner. I was like, dang, I don't like this Trump man. He only thing he do is talk about people. I don't think he no good. She was like, just give him a chance. You never know. Just give him a chance. I was like, you know what? You're right. Don't judge a book by its cover. Just give him a chance. And we saw how he handled that first chance. And you would think after him poorly mismanaging his first term, people would be wise enough not to elect him for a second one. I don't know. I'm just lost for words.
I'm not gonna let you get away with saying I don't know, because we Moorish scientists, and this is an issue. And the reason why it's an issue is a part of the Negro problem, because a lot of Asiatics voted for him. So what I want you to do, because I've asked myself this question many times, what I want you to do is right now, I want you to take the time to ask yourself a question, and then I want you to answer it. Right. Why did people who look like us, who come from where we come from, choose him? I want you to ask yourself that question, and I need you to answer it. And the reason why is because it's Moors like you who I am personally going to call on to go out and to educate our people about the decisions that we have to make as citizens of the United States of America. And you are not going to be able to do that effectively until you can answer this question. It's a reason why Allah made you to be born and raised in this particular time. And I need you right now to ask yourself the question and then answer it for everybody who's watching.
What I can think of, a lot of them was miseducated and misinformed.
Okay. So Trump is one child. He's only one child of the Trump family. And the Trumps See, Donald Trump did absolutely nothing to make his family rich. He has not contributed to the wealth and status of his family at all. Okay? He was born into a billionaire family. With that being the case, he has been on the forefront of the entertainment for his whole life. Now, a lot of y'all don't know because y'all too young to remember. But those of us who are my age and older, we remember that Donald Trump was always known as a playboy. He was always known as a irrational, outspoken, rich brat. Period. Point blank. That's it, and that's all. Every business that he ever started, it failed. The only things that Donald Trump ever did that actually made money was The Apprentice. And now, because he sold his soul to people like Elon Musk and others, he is making money. Otherwise, he has been bleeding his family's wealth ever since he took charge of it. Okay.
Yeah, he sold his name.
No, yes, that's what he does. That's where the majority of his incomes come from. It comes from the fact that a lot of the people say Trump Towers, Trump Hotel. He doesn't own none of it. It's just people using his name. All right. And I'm gonna tell you something that maybe you didn't know. But if you ever get a chance to read his lawyer, his old lawyer, Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen wrote a book called, is it Betrayal or Loyalty or whatever the case? I can't think of the name of the book right now, but I read the book. And Michael Cohen was actually hired by Donald Trump to defend him against all of the people who was using his name, who didn't want to use his name no more because his name is worth garbage. They was like, we losing money. We want to get your name off our stuff. But he wanted the money because it brought him in $15 million every year. And none of his other endeavors was making money. So he was like, no, you signed the contract. And his lawyer, Michael Cohen, who ended up getting sent to the feds for messing with Donald Trump. Michael Cohen was like, he came in and said, hey, no, y'all signed this contract with my client. You're going to keep his name. So all of the Trump Hotel, Trump this, Trump that, and most of the people who really don't know the truth think that Trump owns this stuff. They don't know that he don't own none of it. That his name is only being used by these people because at one point in time, the Trump name was huge. It was a big deal. He's just now running into the dirt. But I ain't gonna say that because are you familiar with the QAnon?
The group,
the religious group who think that Donald Trump is freaking Jesus. Can you imagine that? Like, I mean, like what the freak? Like, can you imagine? These people think that Donald Trump is the savior of the freaking world, man. They they got, hey, listen, look. Okay, so again, everybody know I just got out of prison. I was in prison for 20 years, 3 months, 24 days. Everybody, if you watch Paradigm Shifting the podcast, if you follow me on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever the case may be, you already know my story. All right. With that being the case, I was locked up. I had plenty of time. I followed the news like religiously. Like you see, I kept my earphones in my ear. If you seen me, I had my radio on me and I had my earphones in my ear. Many people would have thought that maybe I was listening to music, but I wasn't. I was listening to the news. And I listened to all the news. I listened to CNN. I listened to all the left, the right. It did not matter to me because the Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, listen to your radio, read your newspapers. I'm going to make the Europeans tell the truth. All right. So following the Prophet's instructions, that's exactly what I did. With that being the case, I found out about this QAnon demonstration when it was a guy. Listen, this guy, I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, he was in Carolina. So this guy was in Cary, he was in like North Carolina, and following these QAnon stuff on Facebook, Instagram, or whatever the case. It said that Hillary Clinton had some children that she was selling on some pedophile stuff in a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. So this guy got his guns. Listen, Mo. He got his guns, he got in his truck, and he shot to the pizzeria to go and save these children that were in the basement of the pizzeria. So, like on these platforms, these websites, it was like on what's it called? 4chan was where the QAnon stuff really was born. Okay. So he was on these sites, he was watching it, and he shot to DC, jumped out his truck with his guns, ran in a pizzeria, ran to the back door where the basement door was at, going to save these children. The basement, there was no basement. The place didn't even have a basement. Okay? There was no children in this place. This man done jumped out with guns. He was like an ex-cop or something. He ran there to go save these children. There was no children in this place. He got locked up by the feds, man, because he done came across state lines. He done came from North Carolina to Washington, D.C. He carrying guns. He jumped out in a public venue. He jumped out in the public venue, ran up into these people's property with his guns drawn because he believed in what the QAnon was preaching. And it was some straight garbage. And everybody know the man is like in the feds, like, man, I really thought I was saving children from being prostituted. But that was not the case. It was fake news. And the people are still believing in this crap. People still support. Now, mind you, we talking about QAnon. On January 6th, the QAnon shaman, I mean, the boss, the leader, attacked Capitol Hill. People died. People committed suicide following this crap. You understand what I'm saying? People who followed this crap, they died, they went to jail, all of this stuff. And still, people are still religiously, listen, not just economically, not just socially, not just politically, but religiously supporting the current regime. What type of sickness are we facing? What type of sickness are you and I, people like you and I, trying to cure? I mean, what is it? It's worse than AIDS. It's worse than hepatitis B. It's worse than any black plague that we have ever faced in the world today. It's worse.
It's just, I remember January 6th. That was one of the craziest moments of like an attack on our capital. They were trying to hang the Speaker of the House and the sitting Vice President. And that's one thing I can respect about Mike Pence is that he uphold not only his oath, but the Constitution of the United States of America that night.
That's right.
Once the president was trying to get him to violate it. And like he said, every time once he goes to speak, it's no vice president's job ever to reject the certification of an election. What he did would have been a direct violation of the Constitution. That's why Joe Biden, on his speech before he left, he reminded people to remember your oath, to uphold the Constitution. Because he knew things like this. The Constitution was going to be challenged. And we need people, judges, politicians to remember the oath that they took to uphold the Constitution and not only protect this country against enemies, foreign and domestic.
Domestic. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Can you, I mean, what? That's like we as members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. And it has happened. See, you new here, but I want to tell you that it has happened. There was a time where a particular group, one, you know, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, there's like 50 or more different grand bodies. Personally, the reason why you don't know about this is because I don't want you as a member of this temple, of temple number 9, to ever reach your hand out to press the hand of another member of the Moorish Science Temple of America and think or say that because you and that individual don't share the same leadership, that they are not truly members. Okay? I don't want you to ever think that. If a person says, I'm a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is my leader, and Allah is the Father of the universe, and in their actions, you see them attempting to live according to the same instructions that you received upon joining this temple, that's your brother or that's your sister. Simple as that. I don't care who their Grand Sheik is. I don't care who their National Grand Sheik is. I don't care who their Supreme Grand Sheik is. None of that matters. All right? So I don't bring that. But there was a group, one of the grand bodies, that for 30 years, the Prophet's divine constitution and bylaws was not the law that they operated under. They literally, their leader, literally put the Prophet's law behind him and created his own law. And their group lived according to that. It has happened. And these are individuals. In your 101s, it says what people represent the lower self. And it says those who were cast out of the city of Mecca and those who accept their teaching. That particular group was under the leadership of an individual who had accepted the teaching of those whom the Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to free us from. Simple as that. Nobody can argue against that. If at any time you operated under a law and it wasn't the divine constitution and bylaws of the Moorish Science Temple of America, something is wrong. I give honor to the Sheik Arlaville, who brought that group back into the constitutional fold of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I give honor to that great and wonderful Sheik. And I give honor to those who came after him, who continue along the path that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali directed us to. I give honor to them. I say this to say that we are not just speaking about the unconstitutional actions of the current administration who govern the United States of America, but we are speaking to anyone who feel that they have joined or pledged their allegiance to a national group, but they know better than the individuals who founded it. What the freak I look like acting like I know better than the Prophet Noble Drew Ali? What the freak any Buddhist look like acting like he know better than the Prophet Guatemala? What Hindu knows better than Krishna? What Hebrew knows better than Moses? And any individual who follow people, you need to recognize when these individuals are acting like they know better than those who instituted the system that you now say that you are a part of. Even a gangbanger. You tell me what GD or BD or Black P Stone or Mickey Cobra is going to sit there and say they know better than the individuals who founded those organizations. when it comes to the operation or the government of those organizations. They tripping. They tripping. They tweaking. You know how we said, man, you tweaking.
Yeah.
You know, with that being the case, all right. So Governor Abbott is tweaking real bad. Right now, you know, Texas, anybody who don't know, let's just keep it 100. Just like the Moorish Science Temple of America, collectively, we have a personality. Collectively, you know, the prophet said, you know, this is for those who have race pride and love their race. This is for those who think their conditions can be better. This is for those who feel like they can live according to the principles and ethics of Islam. It's not for those who don't personally believe what I just said. With that being the case, Texas has its own personality. It has its own order of operation. All right. It's a very, very big state. Like you said, it's the third largest state in the United States of America. And two of those three have the same, you know, Florida and Texas are under the same type of leadership. The Governor DeSantis is no different than Abbott. And everybody looks at Galvin Newsom, you know what I mean, and say, you know, he's a radical Democrat. You know, so they have their different personalities, and the people who elect them, you know, they agree with this, so they have that same type of personality. Something is wrong. And I'm only going to just deal with this one thing, you know, because I don't want the people of Texas to feel like they are under our attack. That's not true. But I challenge Texans. I challenge Texans to ask themselves if what their state and their government is doing is just. If the Constitution of the United States of America says that there should be no religion respected more than any other religion, that no religious practice should be infringed upon or impeded by the government, then how is it okay what Texas is doing? It's just like last year, Governor Abbott gave every officer, military and those, you know, who had collective bargaining agreements, which are the police officers in the state of Texas, the authority that if they would find any person who did not have valid identification on them, they could deport these people. So if at the time you were a juvenile, you were under the age of 18, you was about 15 or 16 years old. So if you would have been outside walking to the store and got pulled over by the police in Texas and didn't have an ID on you, they could deport you legally because the governor said so. Now, you were born in the United States of America. You are clearly a citizen of the United States of America. But because you are a young person who doesn't have a driver's license or doesn't have an ID in their wallet, because you probably don't even have a wallet. But next thing you know, your mom, my cousin, is at the border of Mexico trying to find you. Like, where does the Constitution give anyone this type of power? It doesn't. Even the power of the governors of states, the presidents, the judges, the congressional members, they are regulated and their powers are limited and their powers come from the people. But the same people who have invested their power in these individuals are now subject to having their constitutional inalienable rights violated. How do you violate the inalienable rights of a person? Where inalienable, according to law, means it is a right that can't be violated, taken away from, or given up. So you, in your own ignorance, does not have the authority to give up an inalienable right, but you're going to say that the governor can take it from you? That disrupts the fabric of this country. The thing that this country is built upon now is being torn to pieces. I know I have a tendency to kind of you know, when I start talking about these things, I kind of forget where the people are in relation to what I'm talking about. But I'm gonna say this the same way that the Queen Mother Marimba Ani said it. I challenge my people to raise up. I challenge my people to actually study the Constitution. I challenge my people to study those who authored the Constitution. I challenge them to go back and say, well, what did Hamilton mean? What did Jefferson mean? What did Franklin mean? What did anybody who has put their fingerprints on the Constitution, what did they mean? I challenge people to really ask themselves, you know, and then answer these questions. I mean, I hope I'm not putting more on our people than they can handle.
No, but people, we need to know this. These are our rights that these politicians are playing with. Things that were set in place to protect us. A lot of people talk about the founding fathers, but what they're trying to do is eliminate the Constitution, and the Constitution is set in place to protect us. The founding fathers never wanted a dictatorship. They wanted for everyone to be equal. Everyone to be equal accordingly. So if we're going to go off the founding fathers, we have to understand the reasons why these laws were written, the reason why we have the Constitution, the reason why we have the Bill of Rights. If they ignore this one simple thing, is what's to stop them from ignoring the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment? What's to stop them from ignoring the whole Constitution and all? Like, we need to understand this, and we need to hold these politicians accountable.
That's right. That's right. You're right. So today, you know, today is a day different than other Sundays, you know. So we're about to get ready to end this episode of Paradigm Shift from the podcast. I'm gonna ask anybody if you're watching the podcast, you're listening to the podcast, to really, you know, I challenge you to become a part and a partial of the governing of yourself. All right, become active in, you know, become an active participant in what goes on in your own life. Period, point blank. Don't just go to sleep and then wake up, and when you went to sleep, now you wake up and laws have changed, and you used to life being one way and used to doing things one way and having certain freedoms, and now they've been taken away from you because you didn't show up to vote, because you didn't, you know, ask the questions that were relevant to the cause. You know, ask those questions, answer those questions, be a participant. You know, so with that being the case, hey, you know what? Hey, I want to say something. I was listening to a lot of my own personal content on YouTube and Facebook and everything. I say, and that being the case a lot. I say that all the time. Hey, and with that being the case, it's like I say, my goodness gracious, I say that so much. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Paradigm Shift from the podcast. It's me, my little cousin, you know, Day. That's what I call him. You know, my beloved, but that's Sankey Bey. All right, did I say it? Sankey Bey. Sankey Bey.
Yeah, Sankey Bey.
You know what I mean? Start using your holy name. The Prophet of Ali said, you get the pen in your hand, you write. Islam, all right. You know how I do. In so many ways, I feel sorry for these young boys, not knowing what they got to face in the years to come. The young guiders of the nation. That's why we got to just have fun right now while we can. Asiatics don't make